Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for being here. Darcy, I've heard that song many times, but not like that. How about another round of applause? And thank you, Faye, for all the things that you do, and for all the volunteers that make Sunday happen, and for all the things you do during the week. It's just a blessing here, isn't it? It's so important now to have spiritual community, to have a place to come to that you know where you can worship and connect and grow together. So it's just a blessing to be together. So I heard there was a story about a young man. He had very passionate feelings for a young woman. And he wrote a letter to her about his commitment. And he said, I would swim the widest ocean so that I could see you. I would battle the most ferocious dragon so I could hold your hand. I would work 7 days a week to supply your slightest desire. P.S. I will be by to see you on Sunday if it doesn't rain. Fussy, Gus. So my topic today is calling all hearts. And I got this idea, this plaque in my office that says, calling all hearts, your family and the world needs you to be brave. And isn't that the truth? We are needed to be brave. In the midst of, there's a lot of change and uncertainty in the world, and our hearts are needed for our world to flourish. We need to be brave to step past our fears, and step past our limitations, to come into a compassionate place of love. Anthropologist Margaret Mead was once asked, what was the first sign of culture or civilization? And you might expect her to say, oh, there were clay pots, or there were tools for hunting, or something for gardening. You might think she would say that. But what she said was the first evidence of culture or civilization was a 50,000-year-old fractured femur. And that the femur is the longest bone in the body. And it connects the hip to the knee. And it was found at an archaeological site. And she says, without modern medicine, a bone like that would take 6 weeks of complete rest to heal. And in the animal kingdom, if that bone were broken, the animal would die. There was no hope. There's no way for them to survive long enough to heal. The fact that the femur healed tells a story that someone helped that person to survive. They helped that person to heal. Someone cared for them. And so her answer was, the beginning of civilization was the capacity to care for each other, to have compassion and sacrifice. And the Dalai Lama says, compassion and tolerance are not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. So our compassion is a sign of strength, the fact that we care for each other and do for each other in the world. So scientists have been able to tell us a lot about the brain. And there's 3 parts to the brain. That the back of the brain is the reptilian part. It's the survival. The middle is called the limbic, and it's the part with the emotions. And the front is the cortex with the thinking and logic. So when we feel angry and feel like we want to hurt others, the frontal cortex completely quiets down, and the survival brain is activated, and it takes over. And what happens? We feel fearful and separate. Every person for themselves. And science says there's something called a limbic hijack. And that's when the emotions are so strong, fear or anger, that they take control of the brain's response and they bypass rational thought and lead to impulsive actions. And that's when the frontal part of the limbic system overrides the prefrontal cortex, which is the logic. Without that check of rational thinking, we're lost. So what we know is if we have those feelings of anger or frustration or fear, that there's a couple of things we can do. The first thing is to pay attention to our emotional and physical symptoms, to take a breath. How important it is to take a breath. Let's just all taking a breath. When we're angry or fearful or sad, we tend to stop breathing. When we take a breath, it brings us back to that divine circulation. Sometimes it helps to remove ourselves from the situation, so we're not caught in that feeling. So we want to practice with this. It might take a couple times, but the more we can control that, the more we can pay attention to that, we can gain control of our situation. So in contrast, that's the fear thought. In contrast, when there's feelings of connectedness and oneness, the prefrontal cortex lights up and there's integration through the whole brain. The whole brain is connected because of that feeling of oneness and connectedness. It shows the power of a place of connection and compassion. In her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, Brene Brown says, we can choose to live a wholehearted life. She said, wholehearted living is about engaging from a place of worthiness. It's cultivating courage, compassion, and connection. To wake up in the morning and think, no matter what I do, no matter what gets done, no matter what doesn't get done, I am enough. I'm enough, just the way I am. When we have that connection for ourselves, how much easier is it to have it for someone else? Then we see that for them, not just ourselves, but we see that. When we practice courage, compassion, and connection in our daily lives, we cultivate this place of worthiness. Courage to do our own work, compassion for ourselves and others, and connection to reach out and care about others. Renee says, ordinary courage is about putting vulnerability on the line. In today's world, that's pretty extraordinary. It takes courage to embark on our spiritual journey, doesn't it? To feel that place of love, to feel that place of connection, to do good work in the world. It takes courage for us to do. I remember when I first became connected with New Thought teaching, and the very first thing I learned is that no one is the cause of my happiness. I am responsible. No one's the cause of my pain. I'm responsible for my happiness. I'm responsible. I take care of it. I am responsible and do the work on myself. And it takes courage to do that. The fact that you're here takes courage to do that, because we're here to know that we live this divinely inspired life, that we are connected with the divine, that we are not separate, but we are connected together. Nelson Mandela said, I learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. And so compassion, Renee says compassion is not generally our first response to suffering, right? Our first response is to self-protect, is to protect ourselves. We look for someone or something to blame, that they're the cause of this, or they did this. Or we shield ourselves by being judgmental or going into a fix-it mode. And that's how we protect ourselves. But when we develop compassion for ourselves, I'm okay the way I am. I have compassion for my mistakes. It's easier to have compassion for others. And what she said about connection, she says, when we can look past what pushes our buttons, we see the world with more understanding. We have compassion for ourselves, we're connected. So I have a great example of compassion, having a compassionate community. I want to share a social media post from my friend Linda this was a while back. She's a realtor and she posted this on Facebook and I asked her permission to share this. She said, yesterday I met Otis. I went to remove my staging items, being a realtor. She was at a house. She went to remove her staging items from a sold house. My sign was not on the post. I saw it down the road in the street and I ran down to retrieve it. It had been pulled off the post, so the holes to attach were ripped open. I was looking in my trunk to see if I had a replacement sign, and I saw a black guy. She's a white woman, just to say this. I saw a black guy walking toward me down the sidewalk, carrying groceries and a big package. And I said, hi. And he said, hi. And I said, someone broke my sign. And he said, it was me. We both looked at each other. And I said, it was you? He said, yes, I was mad, really mad at the whole world. And then he said, I'm sorry. Woo. And he walked away. She says, I continued to mess with the sign situation, and I was thinking about the whole thing when he walked back up to me and he put the toilet paper down near me and he said, I'm sorry. And he started to walk away. And she said, she told him, I won't take this. I'm going to leave it here, so you need to take it back. He walked back a bit later and he was crying. I told him I had been thinking about him and I was glad that he came back, that he had a lot to be mad about. And I said it was okay. He was still crying and I asked him what his name was. And he said, Otis. What's your name? Linda, I said. He smiled. I told him I was glad to meet him and that everything was okay. He walked away, still with tears in his eyes. I was wishing I could talk with him. There are a lot of ways that could have gone. A lot of ways that could have gone. There could have been arguing, resentment. It could have broken down into some kind of violence, anger. And instead, there was courage, compassion, and connection. In essence, Linda said, I hear you, I see you, I accept you, I acknowledge your feelings, and your life matters. Brene Brown says, a wholehearted journey is not the path of least resistance, not at all. It's a path of consciousness and choice. It's an opportunity for us to make choice how we want to respond. The willingness to tell our stories, to feel the pain of others, and to stay genuinely connected in this disconnected world is not something we do half-heartedly. I call that situation a miracle. The fact that Otis confessed to Linda that he tore down her son, and the fact that he walked back to her to say, I'm sorry, and the fact that she heard him, and she forgave him, and she connected with him. More than that, she connected with him and looked at him and responded. That is miracle. To practice courage, compassion, and connection is to look at the people around us and say, I'm all in. I'm all in. She says, Brene Brown says, the heart of compassion is really acceptance. Acceptance. In this time, society needs us so much. It needs our hearts. It needs the love in our hearts. It needs our courage, our compassion, our connection. so that we can be present in the world to what's going on. There's a wonderful Buddhist teaching of compassion by using the metaphor of a bird. And the Buddhists say that one wing is being in touch with mindful awareness. So one wing is mindful awareness, and then the other wing is allowing and accepting. It's a place of compassion. So when we come together, when there's an awareness of what the situation is going on in the world, have this awareness, and we identify the situation and accept it and allow it to be, is when we have the connection and when we can soar and when we are free, because we're free in that place. We need both the qualities of mindfulness and allowing to have that place of freedom. I just love that image to remember how to have that place. When we live out of awareness, we can sense what's going on inside of ourselves, and we can pause and allow our hearts to, allow ourselves to take a breath and make that connection with the heart, right? It takes courage to take a pause sometimes because we're in such a hurry. We're moving, going to the next thing and the next thing, the next thing. But we can take a pause and just reflect. There's something powerful in that, to take a breath. And when we can do that, we can reconnect ourselves. We have that moment, we can reconnect ourselves. It doesn't mean our emotions are gone. We're not talking about suppressing emotions. Our emotions are still there, but we have an opportunity to pause and to reflect, to learn to respond rather than react. Because when we respond, we can come from a place of love. I can take a moment and come back and regroup and come to a place of love rather than react and come from a place of anger. So we learn to respond rather than react. What if we engage in mindfulness when we are aware of our emotions? When we can, I have emotions, but I am not my emotions. Can you say that with me? I have emotions, but I am not my emotions. So if we have that observation that I have emotions, I brought them over here. I'm feeling angry right now. I'm feeling sad right now. I'm feeling fearful right now. I have these emotions. It's not who I am. I'm a divine being. I am one with the presence of God. And as a divine being living on the planet, I have emotions. I have reactions. So, but as I know that, I can pay attention. And rather than react to my emotions and bypass the front part of the brain, I can come from that place of, oh, I see, I'm having an emotional reaction. I can see how I want to respond. And I feel like without knowing what was happening, my friend Linda, that's what she did. She had emotions, but she was able to respond in a place of connection. Brene Brown says that the spirit flowing between us and every human being in the world is not something that can be broken. The divine in us, the connection we have, cannot be broken. We are all one. There's an infinite presence of good. But our belief in connection is constantly being tested and being severed at times. And I love this. She says, remember to have a strong back, a soft front, and a wild heart. So she says, have a strong back, be grounded in principle and value. And don't you just see that the spine is strong, that we're standing straight and strong. I stand in my principles. I know my value. Have a strong back. Have a soft front. In the front, this is where our vulnerability is. This is where we're open, where we're compassionate. We're not weak, but we're brave. So have a soft front, a strong back, and a soft front, and have a wild heart. And the wild heart is the ability to be tough and to be tender, to be excited and to be scared, to be brave and afraid, all in the same moment. And that's, we allow our hearts to have it all, but our hearts are open. Our hearts are open and we're ready for whatever is to come next. A strong back, soft front, and a wild. That's what allows us to open our hearts and to present, be present to all those around us in the world, to be compassionate to those who are in fear, to those who are in sorrow, to those who are in need. And as we commit to our spiritual journey, as we commit to making that connection with the divine, making that connection to God, we can have self-compassion, self-acceptance, and stop the self-criticism. When we accept ourselves, we accept each other. How we interact with our family, friends, spiritual community, all support us on our spiritual journey. That we've learned that our spiritual journey, I love the song that Darcy had to sing, love your neighbor, love your brother as yourself, love your neighbor as yourself. Remember that that love is divine, and that as we give that love flourishes. This is our healing. This is our work, and this is our healing. That the planet is not going to be healed by a group of people that come together and figure out some laws. It's not going to. It's about us, each of us, having that place in our hearts. Because when I have that place, that connection in my heart expands and includes you. And as you do that, your heart expands. You include your family, your neighbor, your loved ones, your community, and love continues to expand. That's our work. Calling all hearts, your family and the world need you to be brave and wise. So let's take this into meditation. Oh, take a breath. Let's take another breath. One more breath. Okay, now find that pattern of breathing. Find that divine circulation of yourself, of reception. And allow your heart to open. Visualize the center of your being, right where your heart is. There is a spark, a light, a flame. See that flame expand and grow. See it be one of compassion, one of love, one of courage and strength. We're going to do a loving kindness meditation. And so I'm going to have you repeat after me. And so we first start with ourselves. May I be happy. May I be happy. May I be happy. May I be safe.
May I be safe.
May I be well.
May I be well.
May I be at peace.
May I be at peace.
Wow. Allow that to begin. So we say it for ourselves as loving kindness. We say this for ourselves first. Now, allow in your mind's eye someone in life that you want to maybe connect with, who is in need of something, or there's time for healing. Allow that person to come to you. And now we're going to say this for them. May you be happy.
May you be happy.
May you be safe.
May you be safe.
May you be well.
May you be well.
May you be at peace.
May you be at peace.
And now, see your community, whether it's this community here, or your work community, or your community at home, see your community. Allow to come into your mind's eye who your community is. May all people be happy.
May all people be happy.
May all people be safe.
May all people be safe.
May all people be well.
May all people be well.
May all people be peace.
May all people be at peace.
And so how grateful I am for this sacred opportunity for us to come together in peace and courage and compassion and connection. How grateful I am for us to open our hearts and our minds so that we can be that presence of love for all those around us, not only for our communities, but extend out this light in our heart, extends out into our loved ones, to our community, to our city, to our state, to our country, and around the planet. That this love goes to heal, to bless all those in need. What a blessing it is to be in this time of connection, in this awareness of love, in this sacred work that we do together. So I know I give thanks for all that has been here. I give thanks for these beloveds, for opening your hearts. I know as we go out into the world, we take this love and light with us, and share this with all those we meet.